my live viewers never seem to go up, but oh well, not the biggest problem. I just have to wait for Instagram to catch up, and that's usually about 10 seconds behind. And so I just have to wait here. And we'll tag you and everything. Eventually, what we'll do is we'll chop up the episode as well into short video moments. We'll publish those at Reels, Stories, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and we will tag you all over the place. So, yeah. So hopefully, we'll get that out to you in the next month or two. What we do is we usually do that after the episode, after the interest in the episode sort of dies down. We want to reintroduce people. So.
Makes sense.
Well, it took me many years to go, that's probably a good idea. I would just do it right away. And I'm like, maybe I should wait. Jameson.
You started like 4 years ago, right?
I think like 6 or 7 years ago. I don't even know.
I was trying to remember. I was like, it was before pandemic.
Yeah. I try not to, it's over 600 episodes. That's all I know. And honestly, I don't want to think about what, I just keep doing it. And, it's too depressing to think, oh my God, I'm going to just do this forever. But I do love to do it. It is a lot of fun. And
you're one of the originals. Now everyone's got a real estate podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm competing with like Matt Laracy and all these other guys. Although we have different audiences, of course. Yeah. But I love Matt. But, okay. In fact, he was one of my first. He wasn't my first guest, but he was within my first guests, and he had no reason to do my show because I had no listeners at the time, and he was just a good dude. I'll always love him for that. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, my guest today is Luke Jorwic here in Chicago with Jameson Sotheby's International. Let me tell you about Luke. He's a top 1% producer. And for over 12 years, Luke has been part of one of the top teams in the Chicagoland area. He grew up in Elmhurst, which is a suburb here in Chicago, but real estate was always at the top of Luke's mind, and his unique point of view and experience has helped him guide his clients when purchasing, selling, and investing in real estate since 2012. He's the youngest of 4 children. He grew up with dozens of family members in Elmhurst and the surrounding areas. The experience of having family members from 2 to 90 years old in Elmhurst provides Luke with an unmatched understanding of the town and the way of life there. Luke is a graduate of York High School and Loyola University here in Chicago. After college, he lived and invested in properties in River North and Lincoln Park. More recently, Luke has moved back to Elmhurst and renovated a home right near his family's home with his Bernedoodle named Lady, which is, I might have to see a picture of a Bernedoodle. I'm not sure I know Bernedoodle, but that's awesome. And doesn't shed. His parents live nearby in the same home that they have been in. The family has been in the family for over 50 years. Helping clients purchase and sell real estate is endlessly fulfilling, and Luke prides himself on his honesty, his work ethic, and innate ability to listen deeply and understand each client's unique needs. Each real estate transaction, of course, is different and has its own challenges and triumphs. Luke would love the opportunity to work with you. And he's just a heck of a nice guy. I want everybody to follow Luke on his Instagram, which is Luke Jorwic, Jorwic. I will have a link to that in the show notes. Follow him on Instagram. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I am really excited. I have to sort of peel back the curtain. I went into a complete panic right before, right 1:58, 2 minutes before airtime, because my computer decided to update. And I knew it was supposed to update today, but I didn't think it would update right when I was trying to get Luke on. And Luke and I were not connected on social media, and I couldn't even look up his phone number. I'm like, please, I'm here. I just waiting. So Luke is a gracious guy, and I am really excited to talk to him. And I will calm down from my freak out from earlier. And really, I want to learn about Luke. So Luke, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you grew up in the suburbs. What brought you into real estate?
I always was obsessed with real estate. When I graduated high school in 2009. When I graduated, I really wanted to go to DePaul and actually had a real estate degree. But it was 2009. My parents were like, maybe you should get a degree in something other than real estate.
Yeah, the market just is tanking. Let's do something else.
Yeah, all we're hearing is terrible things about real estate. But much to their dismay, at the beginning, I'm kidding. I was a little, got a different degree, but always loved real estate. And between my junior and senior years, I started working for my current team, actually, as an intern. and I just never left. I worked full time my senior year and was still here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as a senior, were you selling or were you more supporting the team?
I was doing both. I got my license that during that summer because you have to have a license to do anything meaningful.
Sure.
Like showing a real you can't even show a property obviously without a license. Um, so I just got it that summer. So I was working as an assistant, but also selling. And just never. I remember that only conversation I really ever had about it was right after graduation. They were just like, "We're gonna stick with this, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And here we are.
That's amazing. We have it's funny, we get a lot of emails and social media messages from people that are in their early 20s. And I love to talk to people who started in their earliest 20s because it seems daunting. It seems like that would be a challenge. And, getting somebody to help you, trust you to, of course, help them purchase or sell. Or did you do a lot of rentals back then? Because I imagine your peer group at 21 was mostly renting, or
We
how
did
did
a
you
lot of
first get started?
rentals, but I just started. Even with my team, there was really no formal process. I just got thrown in. I figured it out. Like my first appointment was a final walkthrough. Not even know what that meant. It's right before closing. They make sure everything's okay at the unit, and it's a high rise at the Pinnacle. And they were just like, "Yeah, just go. It's at 9 o'clock. The doorman will leave you the key. It'll be fine." And I figured it out. There was some issue with, I think, a TV remote, but it all worked out. Like I was trying to call someone, no one pick up. So yeah, it was just trial by fire, and luckily I knew lots of people. I did lots of rentals in the beginning, but you just stuck with it. And how many years later is that? For 13 and a half, almost 14
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, still doing it. So I mean, it's really fun. I think it's crazy that real estate, not crazy, but it's always interesting to me that real estate is a very common second job, like a career change job. Because the thought of having a salary benefit, I joke all the time, I'm like, that sounds great. But I never knew that. So this just weird, crazy way of making a living is the only thing I know. The idea of like having a 401k with a match and then quitting to sell real estate sounds
That
insane to
must be
me.
nice. Yeah.
I'm like, you got to just stay. It's just,
Health insurance? What? That would be
hell yeah.
great.
You have to pay for your health insurance or not the
Oh,
majority of it at least.
I pay myself. I pay myself. I have an S corporation, so even though I'm technically an employee of my own company, I don't have group
Sure.
health insurance either. I have traditional individual insurance. And I was at the dentist yesterday, and it's so painful to pay. So I'm like, I can't wait to get married and hopefully get on someone else's
I
group
know.
plan. But I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned about part-time, because most agents or most people that have a license are part-time, which is really interesting. And they have other jobs in a lot of cases. And I talk to agents who are full-time. Of course, on the show, everyone's full-time, just like you work so much and you work so hard and well into the evenings, because it is, of course, your business. And I can't imagine doing both. I mean, to me, it would, of course, be nice with the benefits, but I don't know how, even just doing one deal on top of your regular job seems like a very daunting task.
Yeah, I don't understand how people could do that. I mean, more power to them, but just even the mental load of just having one deal going on, I can't imagine thinking of anything else. But people do it. I don't understand why you'd want to work with somebody who's a part-time broker. I'm sure they're great part-time brokers, but for myself, I couldn't imagine doing this, doing anything else. It is a tricky schedule, just having this job, so I can't imagine doing it while doing something else. But
So it's 2025, and I want to talk a little bit about challenges. I rarely talk about this, and I think it's really interesting to our audience because everyone struggles. Everyone's business is imperfect. Everyone's got something that they want to work on or they know they should work on. Just out of curiosity, because you are an incredibly successful agent, you do very, very well, and people certainly aspire to that, but they don't relate to it as much, right? So let's humanize you a little bit, and let's talk about what currently, we have challenges in the market right now. We have low
yeah.
inventory, we have rates where we would prefer them not to be. So for you personally, where are you finding like, I need to work on this part of my business?
Oh, so many different things. I'm the worst at marketing myself, which is kind of funny. I'm on a podcast right now, but I hate asking for testimonials. I don't. I get embarrassed like sending postcards with my sales. I just dislike it. It's so funny, and it's not funny 'cause it's just what you need to do. Nobody, the closed mouth doesn't get fed. But I hate it. And
Yeah.
I can't do it. And when I used to in the different buildings I live in, everyone it's like the first thing you do. Oh, you become a building expert. You say, I live here. I've sold this unit, and it's the unit you bought. It's very tricky, but it works for your first one. And I've never sold or sent a postcard or a mailing to a building I've lived in until after I moved out.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. I wish it's just, I think it's those things I have to work on. I've gotten better at it, but you're either a person who loves doing that, is okay with it, or it just makes my skin crawl.
I'll tell you, I have the same exact feeling. I don't practice real estate myself, but those same sorts of things, asking for testimonials, asking for business, even is something that you look, you are proof that you don't have to do those things necessarily, or you don't have to be loving doing them because you are incredibly successful, even though you might not be asking, I need a review, I need a testimonial. Hey, do you know anyone else who might need my services? It's amazing because a lot of times our audience and really anyone who's not at the top of the mountain yet thinks, well, everybody does everything. They just do it all. They do it effortlessly. They work hard, but it's not really that hard for them. They just put in the hours. And I'm with you. To ask for business, to ask for something from somebody, I find that to be very just not easy for me to do as well. I recruit realtors. I've never once asked a realtor, so are you ready to join us? Like I guess I'm afraid of the no or something, but I
Yeah,
just don't want to ask that. So I think that's incredibly relatable. And hopefully, our audience listening thinking, well, gosh, I'm not good at that either. It's okay. You don't have to be. You can always aspire to be, but you don't have to be. And that's the coolest part about this podcast, or not about the podcast, but about doing this podcast, because people do it in all sorts of different ways. So I appreciate your honesty there, and again, very, very relatable thing. I think even asking friends for business,
that's
oof,
the
that would be a
worst.
tough one. Yeah, the
Sometimes I'm
worst.
just like, you don't have to. I'll be like, you don't, I'll be like, just for the record, even if I am kind of trying to get the business, I'll be like, it's not. I'm not trying to get and I get it. You're looking for a broker. I know great brokers, but I'm just like, no, just ask, just say. I've gotten better at that individually with one to one on one, or with people I know, especially over time. It's like, yeah, because I know what to do. It's like you have to like tell yourself, I actually am the best person for this job. But I also will never like areas I don't know or types of properties I don't know. Which I can't really think of one, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, if you're looking in Libertyville, sure, I'll do it. I've never been to Libertyville. So I'm not gonna tell you I can do that. Like I'm not
Right.
because a lot of brokers do. They'll say, sure, I'll do it anywhere, and more power to them. I'm sure they're great. But I know, especially on the neighborhoods in Chicago, I know very well, and in Elmhurst specifically too. It's like you laugh when that unit that's been on this market for 6 months sells, and you laugh and you see it sold for some broker from out of town. And you're like, oh yeah, that's why they paid that price, because they've never been here before, and they don't know that like it was on the market for 8 months because it shouldn't be that price.
Right. No, I really appreciate that. And I think too, there's something very powerful about saying, I don't do that, or I'm not the right person for that. To me, when I hear you say that, I hear honesty, I hear authenticity, and I hear courage, right? The courage to say, I'm not the right person. And I like you enough as a possible client to give you to somebody else. And maybe you refer it out, or you have a partner somewhere. If somebody says, I want to sell a factory, and you're like, I don't really know how to do that. Maybe you do, but a lot of agents don't. But there are people that do, and that's all they do is sell factories. And as hard as it is to give away maybe that business, it really, I think, ultimately comes back. I always love when I go into a store and the person talks me out of buying something, which isn't that common. But when I do, and they go, you know what, you don't want to buy that. Don't get that. Like, either wait until it goes on sale, or it's not for you. Or I love when people say that. Like
Oh, I
when I
love
go,
telling clients not to buy places. It saves us all time.
yeah,
It's always, especially in this tight inventory market, it's hard because And it has been this way for years. And I feel like every year it's like, oh, the inventory's tight. It's been tight since like 2015. This is not new news. It's gotten worse, but it's always been like people just want to show their clients places. And I always say it's like the first few times you go out, especially when you're working with a buyer, it's like, I'll show you anything because you need to know the market. And when something hits, you need to be able to make that decision. But after a while, people, especially in this market, get a little more desperate. And they're like, well, I might buy this. I'm just like, no, don't, because I'm not going to let you buy it because I have to then hopefully sell it one day when you call me.
Right.
And there's different reasons the places don't work for different people for different reasons. So I know you just said you want a place with two garage spots and an elevator, and this is a walk up loft on the third floor. Like, you're not going to be happy here. So just
Well,
listen.
and you also too, you are super aware that if you were to recommend something that you didn't feel was in their best interest, that's a violation of your own ethics. Forget about the National Association of Realtors code of ethics, which it is too, but it's actually something that I can tell you're a very authentic person. So I want to talk a little bit about your why. So tell us about what it means to you to get to work with buyers and sellers.
I'm very fascinated with how people live in their homes. I'm a huge homebody, which is hard with this job because you have to leave. I kind of love the pandemic, not gonna lie. But growing up, like the house I grew up in was always my parents are both the oldest of their family. And we're most of the oldest of our cousins on my one side of the family. So everything was just at our house. And my parents also bought the house they live in from my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
So who are still alive, and they bought it like 25 years ago. So
Right.
everything's naturally like all the events are at our house. It just happens. And I also have a brother who's 2 years older than me who has autism. So it's just always easier to have stuff at our house. Everything's just been at our house. So it's like my whole life is just entertaining, having people over. And I really get a kick out of figuring out how people live currently and their goals and how they want to live in the future. And I can tell, and because I've known this for so long, I can just picture where someone's going to live probably a lot of times before they can, just from getting to know them. And you just have to know what questions to ask. You have to get to know clients, and that's what I love. Like I love like a year later getting a text from my client sitting in their sunroom being like, I never even knew I wanted a sunroom. Thank you so much. Just random stuff like that um, is why I do this and what gets me through the ups and downs of a life in real estate, because there are plenty of them. Is that, and then just the relationship with my clients is just very fun and makes each day different, which I love.
I always like to ask this of my guests that after a sale, we're the data says they probably aren't moving for 7 to 10 years or whatever the current number is. What are you doing in between? So you've sold them the home, or they've either purchased or sold a home. What are you doing to stay top of or back of mind or top of mind? How are you staying in touch?
I love, and it's different because it's so easy to be in touch with people these days. You've got texts, you've got social media, you've got every weird little TikTok. I don't do a TikTok, but I should. I was really excited when I was potentially getting shut down. It still does. I don't want to get started there, but I should. But any point being, there's so many ways, and it's a lot of times it's just intuitive. Like you'll be driving past a house that it just makes you think of a client or their house or a comp, and it's just making the time to do it right away when you think about it, or at least make a note. Reach out to these people, because even if it's people you didn't end up being close to, you don't become friends with all your clients. It's just important to stay in touch, not only to be top of mind, but to help them with stuff. Like you want to be that person who they go to and they're like, oh, I have this leak. Do you have someone? And even if I don't, I'll find someone,
Yeah.
and I can call you. But it's funny because one of our managing broker at Jameson calls it one night standing your clients. If you
Sell
close
and
and then
then
don't call
don't
them
mention.
again,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, which is a good way to think of it.
It
And
is a
it's
really good
just
way to think of it. You're right.
in the first couple times you have to be intentional about it, like 60 days out, check in, whatever. But what on their by anniversary of them buying, check in, stuff like that. Those things you have to do, and that is the effort of it. But the rest of it is I'd rather contact them less. Like I don't have a content calendar, which again, I'm sure everyone says you should. I don't have one of those. I don't like send out emails to my entire client list all the time. But as long as those the first few times I've set them up and I do contact everyone on their anniversaries of their sales, etc. But then after that, it's all just reality of when I think of them. It's not
Yeah.
contrived, which I think makes it more valuable. Like I'd rather have two or three. I always do a Christmas card, obviously, do a holiday card, and do my fire anniversary. So everyone's hearing from me 4 times a year on things that are just standard that they're going to hear, and then every other time if I reach out to them, it's on legitimately just because I thought of them, which I view as better than I'd rather have 5 touches a year than 12 if they're all fake. Not fake, but contrived or thought of ahead of time.
I agree. I wrote an article once for a real estate magazine called "Nobody Wants to Read Your Newsletter," and, and it's look, I guess a newsletter is better if you're doing nothing, then it's better than nothing. But a reach out, a phone call, a hey, I was just thinking about you, or I was thinking about your property, or just you came into my mind. That's going to trump the best newsletter that's out there.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
So I
right.
feel like there's a couple brokers who do newsletters that I really like. Because they're actually about what things they like.
Yeah,
And like Jeff, Jeff, I'm sure you know Jeff Wilson
yeah.
out of DC. His newsletter is great.
I'll
I
tell
get
you
it in
who
my
does.
personal email and my work email, and I love each one of them.
I'll tell you too, Nicole Hajdu here in Chicago, she does top things to do in the city. She sends it out on Wednesdays. She says top things to do in the suburbs. And every Wednesday, it's so brilliant because she's been on the show as well, because everybody here, at least, who lives in some sort of area where there's things going on, we're always like, what are we going to do this weekend? Around Wednesday, we start thinking about it. And I always go to Nicole's email and I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you. And if for some reason she weren't to send it out, I would actually be disappointed. So you're right. It's if you're going to do a newsletter, make it something that you're passionate about and that your clients actually want. I
Right.
always think like your clients want to know things like what's their home worth, and there could be a way. I guess you can't really scale that, but that's always something that's a conversation piece that could be done. Text, email, I guess a newsletter of sorts. But I want to also talk about millennials because you are a millennial as well.
Yeah.
I
I'm
did the math
I'm
right,
right in the middle.
right in the middle. And what's really interesting is millennials in particular are buying homes later. So this just happened last year, I believe. The age of a first time home buyer went from, I think it was 35 up to now 38 years old. And what's interesting about that, and this isn't my data, I heard Dr. Yoon from the National Association of Realtors talk about this. He was saying there's actually a problem with this. And the problem isn't that real estate agents have to wait a little longer for their clients to buy. It's that the generational wealth, or even just the wealth within one generation, is now they're missing out on about 10 years of growth. We know that homes typically raise in value over time, over long swaths of time. So he actually mentioned like this is a problem. So I'm curious about how are you seeing millennials treat the housing market? Are you seeing more rentals? Are you trying to educate them, or are you just sort of accepting that that's where they're at? So I'm curious to get your take.
I've seen it a lot of different ways. It's obviously the societal issues of why people can't buy houses, of student debt and
Yeah.
rising costs, and now interest rates in the last few years are very serious. And people I have seen wait longer for sure. But I have sort of bucked the trend, and I tell people not to. I bought my first house when I was 23. But it wasn't a house as a stretch. It was a studio. I put 10% down. And I'm now in my sixth property. So I just jumped in and started doing it, and I talked to all my friends about it through the process. And it's actually something I always say. Since people are waiting, I think people want to wait longer, and they want to say, like, "Well, I'm going to buy a house. I'm already 32. I want to buy a house and be in a long time." And I'm always of the mind, buy a house, it's a good investment, and you're fine, no matter how long you want to live there. Luckily, obviously, the market's been great for the last, 12 years, 13 years. But either way, if you buy something that's good value, that checks all the boxes, and you don't put yourself in a position to have to sell, you're not going to lose money.
You know,
So it's
that is such a I want to just pause for a moment. That is such a really intelligent and thoughtful way to look at it, because people want to purchase based on what they want and what they think will give them the, for the most part, not everyone, but the vast majority of first time home buyers in particular want to buy something that they're really excited about because of the way that it's structured or what it, the amenities it has. And I like the fact that you might say to them, hey, this does have all of that. And there may be some challenges with home valuation with this particular property. I like that you bring that in. That is an incredibly interesting thing, because you say, I don't know when you're going to move out. You might have to move out in 2 years. Life gets in the way, life changes. You might, and I don't want this to be something that you regret simply because the market timing might not be great. So you are the first person I have ever heard say that. And I really, really admire that. So tell me a little bit more about that, how you sort of make those determinations.
And it's each client's different. I'm happy to help people rent. I am the least pushy person in the world. I will never be like, you should buy, read this article, generational wealth. I mean, I love real estate brokers, but the line of create generational wealth through real estate, it's like, we're not economists. We're not your financial advisor.
Right.
Like, just chill. Brokers need to chill out a little bit. And it's just about talking to that client, helping them through what's right for them, and then having their back. Because at the end of the day, that's really what I think our job
Yeah.
is knowing that if in 2 years this person loses their job or their spouse gets a job across the country, they're in a position to get out or rent, and it's an illiquid asset. So you have to take so much more consideration when purchasing it, or even renting a place. Like, there's so many variables that I think it's our job to think about. I always tell my clients is that leave the stressing up to me, and you just find a house you like, and I'll make sure everything else is taken care of. I'm not going to
Yeah.
sell you in a building that's financially bad. I'm not going to rent you in a building that I've heard is crap, because we all know those buildings and stuff like that. It's just, I want to make sure my clients are happy so that they keep sending me more clients. Like, I don't even keep a track of what deals I have pending. I really should. Or financially, like, a lot of brokers are like, oh, what money do I have coming in? I don't even look at that, because I know the more time I spend on that, the less time I'm spending thinking about my clients. So if you just focus on your clients and having their back, it's all that matters. And that's all
Wow.
they'll remember.
And there may be times where you tell people you should rent right now because for
Oh yeah.
X, Y, and Z reason. And I love that. My boss told me to do that. I own a place now, but years ago I was thinking about buying and I wasn't sure when to get into the market, and I just wasn't sure. I owned before, but I was renting at the time. And I go, I don't feel good renting. I should buy it. He goes, keep renting, rent for another year. He's like, you get better stuff. You get what you want, and it's not the right time. And I was like, okay. And I was so grateful that he did that, because I would have found a place and I would have bought something and maybe it would have worked out, maybe it wouldn't have. But I love that when people, like you said, when people really have your back, that's really all we want in a service professional. Like, we all have access to Zillow. The public has access to Zillow. They can find properties all day long. They don't really need us
Right.
for that. They need us to see all the things they can't see, and that's what you're doing. And I very, very much appreciate that. And you're also an investor, so you are a guy that likes buying
I
properties.
love
And
buying real estate. My favorite thing to do. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I'm always like, when am I going to move next? Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Like, even right now, I live in a house that's 2 blocks from my one sister. My other sister lives another block this way, and my parents live 4 blocks this way. How could I ever move? Oh, and I have like a great rate, of course. But I'm like, oh, should I put my house on the market? Like, I just want to. I'm gonna buy something else. I always am crazy, and I love that rush you get. It's nothing better.
yeah,
I
well,
literally was singing this week about selling, and I probably will, but that's a whole other story.
we're hearing, I hear the passion, and I think that's so important. It really probably drives you when times are difficult and when the market's not cooperating and other agents maybe aren't cooperating, or you're losing deals because of whatever reason. And the idea of like that itch of wanting to do it for yourself, wanting to do it for your clients, and just sort of do the right thing so everybody wins is really powerful. It's very infectious. It comes across really authentically in how you present, and I think that is, people want to be around people they feel are really into things, that whatever that is they're doing. Like, I want my
Yes.
accountant to be into accounting. Like, I want her to just be
Gosh.
like, oh my god, I just read this cool thing, I want to try it with your business or whatever. I love stuff like that. And I want my dentist to be really into dentistry. It sounds silly, but a lot of people just work a job and they're happy with it. It's okay, but they're not really into it in the way that I would want them to be, right? And so I search those people out, and you certainly seem to be of that ilk, and I think that's very attractive to clients. And
Yeah.
it probably means you don't have to do some of the traditional marketing that other agents do, because that's not really your thing. Your thing is this authentic, I'm on your
I should do
side.
more though. I'm still to be clear, I know I need to do more.
Well, everybody needs to do more everything, right? We need to eat better, we need to work out, we need to take,
Exactly.
better, we need to call our mothers a bit more. There's always things to do, and I agree. Yeah, we always strive for more and better. And at the same time, we, want to make sure we do that authentically. And I think you are demonstrating that. I'm really, really impressed with it. Comes through very, very, very effortlessly, because you're clearly into it, and I love that. And I always tell people who are, struggling in this business, maybe you're just not into it enough. Like, get into it. Yes, cold calls, if you do those, they're going to always suck. Like, all of that stuff always sucks. But so do push-ups, and so do lots of things in life. Lots of things in life that are good for us suck, but you can still get into learning. I think learning is where is what's, I find to be like, when people really want to learn, even throughout their entire career. I love when my dermatologist is like, I just was at the dermatologist, and they're like, oh, I just read this article I want to talk to you about. I was like, I'm so glad you're still reading. Like, I love
Right.
that you're just not going from patient to patient every 15 minutes,
Right.
for the rest of your career, because she could do that too. And but I want somebody that's like, hey, I got this idea for you, things like that. So you're kind of that guy, and I absolutely appreciate that. But yeah, let's talk about, so where do you see opportunities with millennials now? Like, what guidance do they need? Because we know that the average first time home buyer is a millennial. So how would you tell other agents, this is how you relate to a millennial? Here are some things they care about. What is it that a lot of agents don't understand?
I think brokers who aren't millennials, and I guess people in general who aren't millennials, don't understand, and how could they haven't lived our experience, just how many weird things our age group has gone through in our young adult lives. It's like most of us became adults when everyone's like, don't buy a house. The market's going to crap. I don't care if you're an attorney graduating from Harvard, you still not going to get a school, you get a job. And every few years there's something, but I'm not going to go through the list. Whatever, since 2009, every few years there's some big like societal thing that I think a lot of millennials are like, I want to hold back from making big decisions because so many weird things have happened.
They're a little bit more mistrustful, I think, of the traditional systems.
Yes, and then in a good way, they want to be very prepared for every step they take, especially big financial stuff like buying a house. And sometimes people just need a little push, especially these days when prices are a little crazy. They need to be told what to do and why. And we're also very pragmatic in that we need to know why we are doing things and we want data to support our
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah. Well, you grew up with the internet. You were the first generation to have it pretty much your entire life for the most part. And so you
Yeah,
know how to get access to information, which is used to be the thing that only the experts had. Or,
right.
if you had an encyclopedia, I guess you maybe could have access to older information, but you didn't have access to new and quick information the way, I mean, it's just completely different now. So you're absolutely right. People need to prove themselves a bit more these days on, I'm not just a salesperson. I actually have the data. I know I'm not here to BS you. I am here to actually fill in the gaps in your knowledge.
And there's so much information out there. It's less about having the information and being able to synthesize the information for it in ways that relates to what your client's going through. If someone just goes online and searches for 3-bedroom condos in Lincoln Park for an hour, you're going to be inundated with stuff, and you won't. You'll. It's too much. And like you said, everyone has access to so much information. Everyone, before they even send it to me as their broker, it's on Redfin. They see that in 2021 they bought it for 540 and all this stuff. Like, which is great, but that's no longer our job. Our job is to, like I said, synthesize all this information and tell them what not to, what of all this information, so much of it is unimportant. But it
Yeah.
seems everything seems so important because it's such a big decision, especially for millennials, because like I said, we want our data. So doing that and telling people what to focus on and what's important from an investment standpoint and for a lifestyle of living in a property, that's what's important for us and what's important for millennials specifically as an age group.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think millennials are used to they know how to get information. They don't always know how to sift through it. You're right. Like in figuring out what's most important, that's where a realtor may come in and say, here's what's important with this data. But we have to assume that they are doing their own research. They're smart. They grew up doing that. They know how
Yeah.
to access answers. They aren't always trustful of the answers they find because there's a lot of bad information out there, but they know how to get it. It's funny. I was talking to a LinkedIn expert the other day, and he said, you really have to have a nice looking LinkedIn profile. And I said, well, do you really? And he said, you do, because if you think younger clients aren't just Googling you and going to your social links, he's like, you're crazy. They are absolutely doing that, even if it's your best friend. They're looking at it. You don't have to have a big, beautiful, like, I'm the greatest thing ever profile, but you have to put a little bit of effort in because everyone's looking up everything,
Oh
or at
yeah.
least younger people are. And I go, that's a really good point. So you're right. People are going to look. So you really have to be armed with a lot of information, or to know, hey, this is important, this isn't. Here's what you need to pay attention to, and you're really coming to them with the same knowledge that they might have already read, but you're being able to sort of sort through it and say, here's because probably a lot of millennials think, I would assume I would love to see data on this. There's probably a lot of millennials that think I could probably do this on my own. I could probably buy a house. And there's enough articles out there online to say you should do it on your own. And that's really where somebody who is a real knowledge source can come in and say, well, sure, you could. You could. Here's why people don't. Here's why 93% of the country used a realtor last year. And it's not because we have a monopoly on the information. You can find any property you want. So I love that you said that. I think that is so. We have to kind of up our game a little bit because we
For
don't have
sure.
all the, we don't, we're not the only ones with the knowledge anymore. The younger people have it. They just don't have the expertise of what's important. So I love that. Well, Luke, I am so happy that you were able to jump on with us today. I want everybody to really check out Luke's Instagram. It's Luke Jorwic on Instagram. That's LukeJorwic. Luke is with Jameson Sotheby's International. He helps clients all throughout Chicagoland. And although he will tell you if he cannot, if he is not an expert in that particular thing, but Luke loves being a connector. So even if you have questions, or if you are somebody who's an agent in another area of the country, we have, 95% of our audience is not here in Chicago. So if you have clients who may be moving into Chicago and you're looking for a partner to work with. And by the way, Luke works with people that move out of Chicago. A lot of times people move south. I know my parents have, and a lot of people do eventually because it is cold here. So he's looking for people to refer to as well. So reach out to him. He's easy to find. Follow him on Instagram. Just Google him. He's all over the place. And for anyone, Luke, that may want to work with you, what's the best way they could reach out if not Instagram?
It's just Instagram's the easiest way to go. Call me a midstream millennial, TJ.
He's a millennial. And that's exactly what I did when I was running late. I'm like, I hope he sees this. And he had just turned off his phone because he's a good guest, and he turned off his phone. And funny enough, that was the one time he didn't see it, but he will see it when you Instagram him. I want everybody to follow Luke again on Instagram, Luke Jorwic. He's easy. We have a link to it in the show notes. He's awesome. Top producer. Follow him. Do what he's doing. Be authentic. have meaning in your business. Get your clients back is the main message I heard today. Luke is living that reality, and he's doing real well, and he doesn't ask for business, and he doesn't like to ask for referrals or anything, because he just wants to do what he's good at, and it works for him. So Luke, on behalf of the audience, thank you. On behalf of the audience, Luke and myself would like to thank you guys, the listeners, and the viewers, because you're the reason we do this show. Please check out our sponsors. Please tell a friend about this episode. Maybe somebody who's struggling right now. Maybe somebody that wants to work with millennials and doesn't quite understand what they need. Well, this episode told a great deal about that. Send this link to some other agent in your office. We appreciate that. And also leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Let us know what you think. And we read all those comments, and we make improvements based on your suggestion. All right. We will see everybody on the next episode. One last thing. Everybody who is listening right now has a free ticket to our next webinar, which is on February 25th. It's our second webinar, live webinar. You can interact with me. We have 3 guests. The great Danielle Dowell from Chicago will be on. We have a real estate coach who's coaching a National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30 winner, going through her business, and you're going to be able to do a live coaching session too. And we have Kim Ritberg, who is a Netflix executive, or ex-Netflix executive. She worked for a bunch of networks. She's going to tell you how to crush it on video. Go to keepingitrealwebinar.com. It's February 25th from 12 to 3 p.m. Central. And because we have sponsors, it's totally free for you guys. Use the promo code podcast. It brings the cost down to 0. Love to see you there and interact with you. Luke, thank you so much again. And we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you so much.